comfortable enough to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help. It's always okay to have extra support.
I would say, give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. There's some perks, they got great resources.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
I realized that my life was going to change dramatically in ways that I did not know or understand or even comprehend. I was going to have to really go to the well and become accountable and adjust to a lot of things differently.
Lo que queríamos era que naciera, ya quiero tener, entonces ahorita lo que tenemos es aprovecharla, quererla y cuidarla lo más que se pueda.
Creo que a todos nos preocupa la primera vez que nos dicen que vamos a ser padres.
When we started the program, my daughter was about 3 months, and my daughter's 22 months now. Something I love about my child, that she's healthy, she's happy, she knows that she's cared for and loved. Those are some of the things that I wanted to make sure that she had, and she has them.
I'm happy today with my daughter. She's the greatest thing in my life, and I'm glad to wake up and see her, and everything I do it for her.
Sí, bueno, yo también vengo de una familia separada. Creo que por eso también me motiva a estar más presente con él, de quizás también estar de la forma quizás que yo no la tuve para Máximo, y también comprender que el padre no solo es el que pone los límites y las reglas, sino que también está ahí para hablar, acompañar, regalonear, jugar, cosas lindas también, no solo ser el guía para el niño, sino que también un compañero de vida.
I was more of a elated and thankful because for 3 months I was in baby land, and when you're in baby world, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and hoping that you're just supportive in the ways that you can be supportive.
Pero pues aquí pues ya los enseñan un poquito más cosas que uno no sabía, como cuidarla, cómo desarrollarla, cómo educarla, y pues es algo bien porque pues cosas que yo no sabía, pues ya usted nos las dijo y todo como consejos, y pues muchas cosas que se aprendieron.
Bueno, creo que por mi parte esperaba algo totalmente diferente, como un programa más frío, por decir algo, no tan cercano a la familia, sino más bien un programa de estado programado para la ayuda solamente. Y a través del programa nos hemos dado cuenta que también pasa a ser una familia con nosotros, porque nos apoya en los momentos difíciles o cuando nos hemos visto en dificultades. Siempre nos hemos podido apoyar en Gaby a través de su programa. Encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
My experience has been nothing but positive. Annette has been wonderful. She's on time. She lets me know if there's going to be
Local
any
Agency
changes.
Formation Commission meeting of November 4th to order and invite roll call.
Thank you. Good morning. Commissioner Roden. Commissioner McGordy.
Here.
Commissioner Horsley.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Present.
Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Chair Mulhern.
Here.
And Commissioners Crane and Hashik and Kristen are.
Thank you. We are on to item number 2, public expression. The commission welcomes participation in the LAFCO meeting. Any person may address the commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of LAFCO which is not on the agenda. There is a 3-minute limit and no action will be taken at this meeting. If there is a member of the public in the room that wishes to speak on something that is not on the agenda, they can come forward at this time. And if there is anyone on Zoom that wishes to speak on a non-agendized item, they can use the raise hand feature. Seeing no one come forward in the room and no hands raised on Zoom, I will move on to item number 3. Item 3A, the oath of incoming alternate public member, Ragda Zakaria. Go ahead and if you could please come forward. Oh, okay, perfect.
Good
morning,
everyone. Want me to read it now?
Yes, if you could just please read that top paragraph.
I, Ragda Zakaria, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will and faithfully discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
Your mic is off.
Okay.
Right through this door here. Thank you. Okay, while she is taking her seat, we are on to item number 4, the consent calendar. The consent calendar has 4A, October 7th, 24 regular meeting summary. Item 4B, the October claims and financial report. And item 4C, a contract with the County of Mendocino Information Services for GIS and meeting support services for fiscal year 24-25. Does look like we have Commissioner question. Commissioner Ward.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I'm going to vote abstain on the minutes because I wasn't here the last 2 meetings. But I did have a question on the GIS. What rates increase in rates were there?
Excuse me, it was the standard COLA rates for the,
And COLA was what?
I can't remember the
9.1 or
percentage.
1.2? Or
Something like that, yeah, it was pretty small.
It was pretty small, okay.
Yeah.
And that's all I had. Thanks.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I move approval.
Okay. Okay. Can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Roden? Commissioner McGordy?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes, on the GIS. Abstain on the minutes.
Commissioner, or Chair Mulhern?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we are on to item number 5A, the public hearing. This is for the City of Ukiah Western Hills Annexation and Sphere Amendment and findings pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Director Hinman, and you can lead us on from there.
Thank you. Our analyst, Larkin Filer, will be presenting this item. I do want to note that city staff are here. Jesse Davis, Craig Schlatter, are both here to answer questions.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can. If you could speak up just a little bit, that would be great.
Okay, wonderful. So, see if I can advance the slide. There we go. So today, the Commission is considering an annexation proposal from the City of Ukiah involving 27 assessor parcels and approximately 791 acres in the Western Hills of the Ukiah Valley. And you can see the area as kind of the turquoise color on the screen here. And this does involve 732 acres of city-owned land and 59 acres of privately owned land. The purpose of the annexation is open space preservation, public access, and limited residential development. There is also a sphere amendment proposed. While most of the areas within the city's 2022 sphere of influence boundary, there is a 40-acre parcel that's owned by the city that needs to be added to the city's sphere. So there is a sphere amendment proposed. The 40-acre city-owned property is within the city's general plan planning area. It is adjacent to the city limits, and it is adjacent to the 692-acre city land acquisition area that was originally proposed for the Western Hills. So the city has pre-zoned the area as low-density residential with a hillside overlay and public facilities. The land acquisition by the city includes a development agreement for 10 parcels with 20 dwelling units. There are also 2 private parcels with development potential that will be constrained by slope and hillside development standards. And in general, the annexation is proposed to clean up overlap parcels between the city and the county. It includes intervening parcels to prevent the creation of islands. And it will also align city land ownership with city governmental oversight and controls. So there is a lot line adjustment that is proposed post-annexation, and this includes a clustered residential development of 69 acres, shown in green on this slide. And this area is near city limits, infrastructure, and services. And there's also a large open space preservation area of 665 acres, shown here as tan. So there will be no conversion of farmland to non-agricultural uses as part of this annexation because the area is designated as grazing land. There are no disadvantaged unincorporated communities contiguous to the proposed annexation area. The annexation area will improve the wildland urban interface by clustering future homes near city limits and increasing land development and fire prevention activities in the open space preservation area. City has sufficient capacity to serve the area, although there's no immediate increase in public services post-annexation. And municipal service needs will be addressed with the discretionary permits for future development. The annexation area is considered uninhabited because it contains less than 12 registered voters. Therefore, the Commission may waive protest proceedings if no written opposition is received and not withdrawn from landowners or registered voters within the affected territory before the hearing concludes today. The 21-day notice of public hearing and the notice of intent to waive protest proceedings was properly published, posted, and distributed by Monday, October 14th of this year. And no comments have been received from the public or public agencies to date. So the Commission, as a responsible agency, will independently review and analyze the City of Ukiah's mitigated negative declaration and addendum in connection with consideration of the annexation and sphere amendment proposal, and consider making findings as detailed in the LAFCO resolution. And staff has made 3 recommendations. 1 is making CEQA findings, 2 is approving the proposal by resolution, and 3 is waiving the protest proceedings. And these recommendations are detailed on page 36 of the packet. And finally, this slide shows an image of the Western Hills looking down to the Ukiah Valley. And That does conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I do not have any commissioner questions so far. Okay. Commissioner Horsley.
Thank you. On page 39, under electric service, it says electrical service is planned for development, parcels 1 through 7. Why they do not feature a plan for electrical services on 9 through 11. Easements along the proposed roadway have been provided via the associated purchase agreement. Are those easements given to the city or to the developer?
I think what I'd like to do is just have city staff write down all of the questions from commissioners, and we'll handle them all at once, if that's okay. And then if they're missing any, we can come back.
I just have 3 questions.
Okay.
The next one is on page 40, under the paragraph that says, upon annexation, the sewer system may consist of a private sewage disposal system. I'm just wondering what a private sewage disposal system is, because it says alternatively, the developer may install sewage holding tanks, pumps, and other components. I'm assuming it's a septic, individual septic, but I wasn't sure. And then on page 42, the bottom paragraph, this was confusing to me because it says, as analyzed in the city's 2040 general plan, the maximum build-out potential would result in an additional 2,350 housing units. And I just wondered, is that not just in the Western Hills? I'm assuming that's the whole city. Okay, that was answered. Okay, thank you.
We'll also have them answer it for the record on that. Thank you. Okay, I think McGordy, Gonzalez, and then Ward.
So a couple questions. I know that neighborhood. I lived at 1365 Helen Avenue for many years and have actually hiked up the hill, and it's beautiful once you get up there. It is quite steep, and 2 questions on potential for development there. One is fire safety. Is this going to be one way in, one way out in terms of the access to the potential housing? And the second point is that this ground is fairly steep. Geology of that area can be unstable depending upon what's under it. It's kind of a mixture of serpentine and sandstone rocks, and I just wonder for road development and everything else that has to do with building, if that's really going to be a very easy place to construct and get fire insurance. So those are things I just wonder if they've been addressed.
I do believe that those things have been discussed, and we'll have city staff address those when they come up. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Regarding the open space designation, will somebody retain ownership of that, or will the city be responsible? So if in the future somebody needs to clear brush or whatever, is it going to be an individual property owner, or will it be the city taking? That's just a question I had. I didn't see that there. I understand it'll be the Ukiah Fire Department that'll, or the Ukiah Valley Fire Department that'll come up there in the case of a fire, but I was just curious who, if the brush gets a little too thick, who's going to be responsible?
Thank you. And Commissioner Ward.
Thank you. So the justification for this proposal was to preserve property in the Western Hills open space, and then opportunities for trails and whatnot. Why does it need to be annexed? Why couldn't the open space be continued? It's been like that for years. Was that question ever asked? Maybe I'd like to hear from the staff. After all these years, why now? The other primary reasons was to allow a limited development. Well, has development been enhanced, or will it be enhanced because of the annexation? They needed the annexation to develop. That's one of the questions I had. And then I also had questions on some of the ownership. There's a lot of parcels that are owned by a development LLC. Are they going to develop? Is it the plan is to develop those? And if so, how are all the infrastructure and stuff that some of the questions came up, how is that going to be covered? I'm a little concerned about the open space too on fire. Usually that large areas of fire are covered by CAL FIRE. Is CAL FIRE still going to be involved, or is the Ukiah Valley Fire Authority going to take care of it? And then I also had, on the protest processing, there's 12 people there. How many of the 12 need to file a protest? I mean, does it have to be more than 12 or more? In other words, would all the property owners have to protest? And then CEQA, we're talking about a negative deck, but this could be a pretty good build out. Something we need to consider. And then on page 38, what is Ukiah balance area? Subject annexation parcels are outside the Ukiah balance. Didn't understand that. And I think I have a few more, but that'll get us going.
Yeah, and I do believe that the negotiations for this entire project, as it were, have been undergone for several years, many years. And so hopefully we can have Jesse Davis up from the city of Ukiah to be able to answer some of the commissioners' questions and address some concerns. Uma, did you want to address the protest question, or Analyst Filer?
Certainly, I can address that part, if that sounds good, Uma.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So as far as the protest goes, in this area, there's actually 4 registered voters. It would only take 1 registered voter providing written opposition in order to not waive the protest proceedings. And then if it did go into the protest proceeding process, it's generally 25% protest moves that into an election process. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
So 1 out of 4? 1 out of 4.
Yeah, and then 4 out of 12.
Right. Correct. And it could also come from a landowner in the area.
Okay. I don't see any additional commissioner questions. So if Jesse Davis from the City of Ukiah or Director Slaughter from the City of Ukiah would like to come forward. Good morning.
Good morning to the Commission and Chair Mulhern. Craig Slaughter, Community Development Director, and I'm going to introduce our team here today. Everyone knows Jesse, our Chief Planning Manager, and also Maya Simerson is with the City Manager's Office. She's Project and Grant Administrator. There's a lot of knowledge just between the two of them, so I'm going to speak very shortly. I'm just going to take really Commissioner Horsley's question about the general plan and the maximum build out. So there's 3 alternatives that could show, for maximum possible build out in the Ukiah Valley, because our general plan, is encompassing of the entire Ukiah Valley in our sphere of influence. So that number is the very high end of the possible build out that could be achieved over a 20-year period of the entire Ukiah Valley, that 2,000 plus unit. So not in any way related to this application. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse, who's going to take, it looks like about 5 questions, and then Maya will handle the rest.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chair. Jesse Davis, Chief Planning Manager, City of Ukiah. I'd like to start by just addressing a handful of your questions, and as more arise, please don't hesitate to ask. With regards to the annexation effort, the private sewer systems would be on site, and that would be something that would be determined on a case-by-case basis. All of the residential properties that are identified for development contain a hillside designation, which, because of the slopes associated with each of the parcels proposed and outlined, that requires a discretionary review. Discretionary review might determine that in the case of certain parcels, on-site is actually a preferred alternative as compared to utilizing the city system for that particular development. And that also, I think, begins to address other questions that were raised by the Commission with regards to fire safety and access and those considerations. Hillside development requirements require that for any residential development or use permit, site-specific analysis, including geological and site-specific soils analysis, be conducted prior to residential development. And there are also requirements for aesthetics and to maintain a certain amount of natural space on each of the identified parcels. While 20 units is the total build-out potential for the residential development area, that includes both each parcel having a primary and an accessory unit, which may not be the case for all properties. So that's just a total. And with regards to retaining ownership, the public facility designation, I think, addresses many of the considerations as to why a city would want to maintain ownership of such a vast wilderness area. Those include providing public safety benefits, better management for the land, as well as things like watershed and resource protection. The Western Hills annexation area includes a number of watershed origin points, as well as important tributaries to the Ukiah Valley. That was an array of responses to your questions. I'm sure there might be more specific ones that I'm happy to address. My colleague Maya would be able to first speak to some of your questions about easements and fire safety. I've already spoken about some of the geology and development considerations, but Maya would be well positioned to address those questions.
Good morning. My name is Maya Simerson with the City of Ukiah, and I will do my best to answer some of these other questions. One of the questions that came up was in regards to the easements, and the easements for power specifically are actually granted to the City of Ukiah to be able to provide the power service. It would be, especially if annexed within the electric department's jurisdiction. And we also retain easements for our own use, to be able to put in additional infrastructure if there became an opportunity, other projects that would be benefit to the public facilities or the community, then we put in additional conduits.
Maya, can you scoot the mic a little bit closer to you?
Sure. So the second question that arose was in regards to fire safety and the access points, which also ties into the geology and the road development. So the major road has already been installed and has been toured by the Ukiah Valley Fire Authority and CAL FIRE. It does have a width of over 18 feet in almost every area, with the exception of one or two areas where there's turnouts to accommodate vehicles being able to pass each other going both directions. So it is primarily a one-way in, one-way out situation, but that's not to say that there isn't the possibility of developing a loop through some of the lower elevations to provide a secondary entrance, especially for fire access only. So the area will be under the general purview of the Ukiah Valley Fire Authority, but it will remain a shared resource area. So the SRA will be served by CAL FIRE additionally, and they aren't going to stop supporting the land just because it's being annexed by the City of Ukiah. And I think that ran through all of the questions in regards to fire and easements.
Wait, I have pins up from Commissioner Ward, McGordy, and Gonzalez. And so I really want to thank the City of Ukiah staff for coming today to be able to answer the Commission's questions, and to the best of our abilities, we'll try to get through getting the right person the right question. So we'll start with Commissioner Ward.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here, and I know this is an important project for the city. But I'm not against this annexation. I just have questions why we're doing it now. I mean, the open space, protect open space, create trails, allow a limited development. Why wouldn't that happen without the annexation? In other words, if somebody wanted to develop one of the parcels up there, why couldn't they do it now? Or do they have to have the city's annexation approval? Second of all, the watersheds, don't the watersheds also already enter the City of Ukiah? So you're protecting them, but you're already getting that. And then the last one is are the 40-acre minimums up there for the parcels?
So to ensure that I respond to all of your questions, if we could go through them one at a time, and that way I can respond concisely to the
You're
question.
not good at doing multiple questions, huh?
I am, but I just don't want to provide you the wrong answer to,
No,
or miss
I'm-
one of your questions that I think are really important. The first question was why now? And I think now is the perfect opportunity, in part because not only is the ownership under, a single owner with regards to the majority of the properties, the city now has in place, through this annexation process, all of the right tools to facilitate the annexation request. Whereas before, that wasn't the case. There wasn't a master tax share agreement. There wasn't the requisite analysis from the environmental side. So now with all those tools in place, we're able to facilitate the annexation, in part because we have a landowner that is easier to deal with in terms of one single entity rather than the disparate array of previous owners. That was to your first question, why now?
Okay. But as far as the development of the parcels, why haven't they been developed already?
For a variety of reasons. They are currently identified for residential development under the county zoning designation of Upland Residential 40. So an individual could designate those properties and develop them. But for those same reasons, when you have fragmented ownership, obtaining things like access easements and other considerations are sometimes difficult. The additional aspects of developing properties without the ability to connect to a residential utility, like electric or sewer for that matter, just further challenges that development. Not to say that it can't happen, but it's more difficult. So part of this is to reduce the development pressure on sensitive terrain. And we do that by locating those development parcels through lot line adjustments closer to those city services and in a way that can facilitate that development appropriately. So not to say that development can't happen without the city's annexation, it could, and in many cases it will actually engender a worse outcome, not only for the city, but also for the pressures that it creates on those lands. By having those developed parcels, and if you pull up some of your maps, you can see the current outline of those parcels and shapes. So that's why the city's approach to this, I think, is more thoughtful. We enhance development by having a process that requires discretionary review to consider a lot of the questions that are being raised right now. So this is a thoughtful approach to balancing the needs of not only open space and fuel reduction and watershed protection, but also residential development in a thoughtful way that's close to city services, that's clustered, and is through a thoughtful discretionary process rather than a by right one.
So am I correct to say that these are 40-acre minimums? So one unit per 40 acres?
That's the current designation under the county zoning. And so some of those are non-conforming parcels. The city's current designation as applied under the development agreement, it's actually in the tentative map. They lay out those 10 development parcels, some below, I think, 10 acres, some at 10 acres in size, some a little bit larger. So the development parcels are conforming to the city's hillside designation.
They understand that the fire insurance on these parcels is going to be exorbitant.
That's ultimately a question for the private and residential developer themselves, whether it's the property owner or the home builder, to consider those residential concerns or considerations with regards to private insurance.
So who's G&J Investments?
That's Dave Hall. My colleague Maya can provide additional context as to the development agreement as well as the entity.
And they're proposing to do development up there?
Not necessarily. It would be, as I think noted in the staff report by LAFCO staff, it would be unprecedented to see a comprehensive development take place in the Western Hills like that. The likely scenario is one in which those parcels are developed incrementally by homeowners as appropriate. Much of the agreement with the county, for example, was structured around that expectation that the parcels would be developed incrementally over time by individuals. Nowhere in the city's history do we have that level of development occurring under a single entity in a concentrated time frame. So the city and county's expectation is that these properties will be developed incrementally over the next 5 to 10 years. And as noted in the development agreement, parcels 7 through 10, that additional 40-acre piece that the city requested for annexation, that's not even proposed for development immediately, in part because the utilities needed to develop those areas, as identified on the map, would still require utility extension, road improvements, et cetera. So the city is approaching this with the expectation that the development will occur over the next 5 to 10 years.
The last question is, I assume the Ukiah Valley Fire Authority is okay with all that?
Absolutely. They've been an incremental partner, and actually because of the hiring we're able to do through our grants team, we'll have fuel reduction crews and other activities that are going to help to reduce some of that risk that's associated with the fuel buildup in the Western Hills. Ukiah Valley Fire Authority was incredibly impactful in terms of developing the standards for the road and the baseline for where these parcels are going to be. Again, individually, these parcels will be developed on a case-by-case basis, but the framework and the backbone for access was critically reviewed by Ukiah Valley Fire.
Okay. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Commissioner McGordy.
Well, just concern again about the one way in, one way out, because that whole neighborhood's one way in, one way out when you get to South Helen. So if we're faced with a fairly large conflagration coming down the hill, we want to be sure that there's ways for people to get in and out safely. And I see this in Supervisorial District 1, particularly in the East Hills area, where getting everybody out at once can be a real problem. And there should be, I'm thinking of where Redwood Avenue is. I would hope that there would be a way that not everyone's trying to get onto Washington to get out of there in the event that there is an emergency, because there's already multiple homes in Doolin Canyon and Helen Avenue that you know, we'd want to make sure, not that 10 residences that build out are huge, but when everyone's trying to get out at once, it's a concern.
If I may respond, I think that's absolutely a critical response to the city's next steps with regards to its safety element, our local hazard mitigation plan, which is being conducted in conjunction with the county, and California law. Moving forward, jurisdictions are required to address those concerns, and we have a number throughout the city, not just in our Western Hills, but other areas where cul-de-sacs have prevented effective egress in the event of an emergency. So the city will be addressing that comprehensively as part of our safety element and our other mitigation planning tools. With regards to the development increase that we're going to be seeing through 10 additional units, I believe that ultimately is fairly minimal in terms of when and how those units are being constructed over time. It also allows for us, because we have discretionary review, to require mitigation measures that will buy additional time for individuals who need to either have additional on-site suppression through tanks or additional egress if that's determined to be an appropriate mitigation measure.
And are there fire standards now? Have we upped the code to take a look at places like this so that they would not burn easily by having, you know, like hardy board siding and steel roofs and those kinds of things?
Yeah, that's actually something that's not only within the building code for the city of Ukiah, but also within the planning code. Under the hillside development regulations, WUI standards are applied to development under that hillside combination district. So considerations like covered soffits and eaves, hardy board, more fire resistant siding, not featuring, you know, redwood or cedar shake roofs that might be more flammable. So those considerations are part of our zoning and building codes for the city of Ukiah that would be applied to this potential development.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Just confirming, I think you said that the city would be responsible for fuel reduction in that open space area?
That's one of the opportunities that's created through our annexation. It's now going to be a more straightforward process to undertake fuel reduction activities because it's no longer a shared jurisdictional concern, right? There's now, under full city jurisdictional authority, we'll be able to apply the fire district to do things like fuel reduction events more frequently and more efficiently. So that's one of our benefits from facilitating
So
annexation.
the city would bear the cost of that then?
Technically the fire district.
All right, thank you.
And Commissioner Horsley.
I think I read in the staff report that it was mentioned there was a whole group of people that are designated for reducing fire hazard, mitigating fire hazards in the Western Hills, and it actually named the number of people that would be involved in going up there. Is that correct? So that's already set up. Correct?
Yeah, on our jobs posting board right now for human resources, we are looking for fuels reduction crews and chiefs. So that's something the city is actively undertaking to staff that entity to do that work.
And secondly, I think we can assume that for the owner of the property, having the city take this over as a real boon for that owner, because now there's going to be coordinated roads, septic, water, electric, and I'm assuming that he will be putting those parcels up for sale, and individuals that want to develop or build a house will purchase the property from him rather than Dave actually developing.
And Maya, my colleague, can speak more to how the homeowners association would be structured to manage those private assets. But yes, the extension of city utilities does allow for development to be enhanced more efficiently. And the other parcels that are being identified for annexation correct longstanding issues or boundary errors that have been perpetuated over time. So the parcels that we've identified for annexation not only are for development, but they're also for cleanup and to set the table to allow for open space access and preservation and mitigation efforts in the future. So that's the overall package of this annexation request, is to kind of feature all of those in a thoughtful and balanced way to accomplish the goals in our general plan.
Commissioner Ward?
You mentioned how to cut down on fires and stuff by using products that are fire resistant and all. I didn't know California Fair Plan did that. I think they just look at a map and say, well, you're in this area, you're going to pay. It doesn't matter if you have roofs that are fireproof and all. So I didn't realize that we could get a reduction in insurance if we have those things. California Fair Plan isn't telling me that.
You maybe need a different insurance agent. Commissioner McGordy?
You
Just another quick comment about the watershed potential, which is important. As the chair of the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency, we have 162 little tributaries that feed into the Russian River, and they make significant contributions, and the health of them is really, really important. And a lot of these watersheds, in this case I imagine Doolin Creek and Gibson Creek are affected. They haven't really been managed well for health, for vegetative health, as well as for yield of water, along with legacy problems that may exist from poorly designed roads that let silt bleed into the system. So this is actually one of the things that the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency is very supportive of, is getting active management in important watersheds like Gibson Creek and Doolin Creek, because they contribute a lot of water into our groundwater as well as into the Russian River.
And if I may respond to that question, some of the things that we've already identified for activities in the Western Hills include things like cleanup of former cultivation sites, for example, in which grading or other activities have taken place that have degraded the watersheds around it. So there are at least 1 or 2 cultivation sites that are still remnants or fragments that, because now the city is the appropriate owner, we can conduct some of those watershed improvements to maintain better health for the watershed itself.
And we definitely found where they had been diverting water, and so to be able to eliminate any illegal diversions is beneficial for the entire basin.
Thank you. Commissioner Roden or Commissioner Zakaria, do you have any questions or comments? Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
Commissioner Ward, yep.
So when you say we, is that the city of Ukiah or the property owners?
The city of Ukiah. As we've been doing our site inspections, we actually started trying to acquire this property in 2018 through the process of doing land acquisition grants through California Fish and Wildlife. So we did extensive site visits with CDFW personnel and actually hiked all of the waterways and did a thorough assessment of the stream and creek areas, and that's when we found some of the illegal activities that have been happening up there. So we feel that the city as an agency being able to do regular monitoring and site visits, we're going to be able to immediately stop anything that may have gotten a season or 2 in previously without having been detected. We have game cameras set up that we're actively monitoring right now.
Thank you for interpreting that. I kept hearing we, and I didn't know what we
Sorry,
was.
yes, the city of Ukiah.
I have a question for Uma. Now that we've had our first master tax exchange agreement, how did this one go about? I mean, there wasn't a lot of development and stuff, but there's a master tax deal, but there was a separate tax exchange agreement with this as well?
No, this one did fall under the master tax share agreement. So this is the first application that that master tax share agreement will be applied to. And essentially our role was to ensure that coordination between the county and the city occurred. And then we will receive a tax rate area letter from the auditor once the reconsideration period is over. And then we will submit all of that to the Board of Equalization. That will be the extent of our.
So is this now set the groundwork for other projects we have did it go smooth enough that we shouldn't have any more issues with this in the future? Because that's what's holding up a lot of our work plan or our applications.
Well, it doesn't apply to special districts, which
Oh, that's right.
we still have to go through the normal process with the assessor and auditor for those.
Well, thank you for getting those through because it's been a long time. And I know you wouldn't have had the annexation without it too, so.
And
There's
if I
a lot
may,
of people involved, thanks.
I think an important part of the tax share agreement was not just the taxes themselves, but also the housing component, which was a framework that this application utilized to determine the number of assigned housing units that the city would take on from the county as part of the next regional housing needs allocation. So this master tax share agreement was utilized to help determine how that housing breakdown and that fair share of housing units was facilitated. So kind of a critical part as well.
Where are you going to annex next?
No, don't go there.
Commissioner Horsley has an additional question.
I just wanted to thank you for such a thorough, well thought out, detailed staff report, and also the job that the city's done over the last 3 years on this. It's obvious you've thought through very carefully every aspect of this proceeding, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Roden?
Well, I second what Commissioner Horsley just said, but it's sort of a question, but it's about the CEQA document, and it's almost 400 pages, the CEQA document, and I couldn't read all 400, but I've kind of gone through it to see less than significant impact or no impact, and I guess what I'm interested in is maybe from LAFCO staff, we as the commission are responsible if we adopt this CEQA document and say yes. I mean, we're accepting this mitigated negative declaration, and I just want your input about approving such a important document that's so big that most of us, we leave it to the cities when they give a proposal to us to, adequately evaluate the potential impacts. And I just wonder if you could comment on our evaluations of these documents and that.
That's an excellent question. And I think we leaned heavily on Marcia for review of the CEQA process. So I'd like to defer to her.
Good morning, Marcia.
Good morning. So I think that in this particular process, the city has gone through through this effort more than once. And I went through their CEQA analyses and felt very comfortable with the amount of evidence that they had in the document, the analysis and the conclusions. So I don't know if you have any specific impact areas that you were concerned about.
No, it's just sort of appreciating a staff, that you had read it thoroughly and with eyes of, somebody who's experienced in evaluating impacts. I mean, I know the area and it all seems completely reasonable to me too. But I just think for the general commission and because we're likely to get future annexation proposals, just evaluating these documents is important, and your input for us.
Yeah, and so that's actually great that you brought this up because I do go through a very careful analysis of the CEQA documentation. And there's, we also participate early in the process. So when they do their notice of preparation, a city is preparing for this kind of annexation or proposal to the LAFCO. We review the early drafts. We comment so that if there is some part of the analysis that we feel isn't robust enough or needs some additional work, we can weigh in on that while they're preparing the document.
Great, thanks. That's reassuring. And I just wanted to say that this is a great kind of easy first, annexation for us to, see what it's like for a city following the whole master tax sharing agreement, to see what it's like to iron out any bumps or whatever. So anyway, this is a good project, and yeah, I support the annexation proposal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to make sure that we open up for public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this item today? This is item 5A. Seeing nobody come forward in the room and seeing no hands raised on Zoom, I will bring it back to the commission. Before I ask for a motion, I did want to say that I've been following this process for quite some time. So obviously, as previously been a city council member when this was originally discussed with the property owner, to now watching the city of Ukiah City Council discuss this in multiple meetings, and receiving a lot of emails from concerned citizens over the last course of the 4 years. And I want to say that I really have a lot of appreciation for city staff for taking those residents' concerns into serious consideration. And of course, look very much forward to having more open public space for hiking and recreation for our community members. It's a really important piece of what makes Ukiah a great place to live. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into this application, and appreciate the work of the property owner in negotiating some of the agreements that have come forward. Commissioner Ward?
What concerns?
Sure, similar concerns that were raised from the commissioners today regarding fire safety and utility easements and those types of things, which have been worked out over the course of time.
I just wanted to move.
Yeah, so we have three recommended actions, and Analyst Filer, would you mind bringing that back up on the screen? Or Commissioner Ward, if you wanted to just, there's 3 recommended actions. The first is the mitigated neg deck for CEQA, the approval of the resolution, and waiving the protest proceedings.
My question is, do we need to take them separately, or can we do them in one?
I think that'd be a question for Marcia. Can we take all at once?
It's better if you do them one at a time. I know it's more of a process, but it would be better to do it that way.
Thank you.
All right. I would like to move that acting as a responsible agency pursuant California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, find that the mitigated negative declaration and addendum thereunto adopted by the city of Ukiah for the project were reviewed, considered, and determined to be adequate pursuant to CEQA.
Second.
Thank you. Could we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Roden?
Yes.
Commissioner McGordy?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Chair Mulhern?
Yes. Commissioner Roden?
I'll move the recommended action to approve the City of Ukiah's Western Hills annexation and sphere amendment.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner McGordy?
Yes.
Commissioner Roden?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley? Chair Mulhern?
Yes.
I'll move the third recommended action.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley?
Yes.
Commissioner McGordy?
Yes.
Commissioner Roden?
Yes.
Chair Mulhern?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we can complete item 5A and move on to item 6A, the Irish Beach Water District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Update. Thank you for coming. The Commission will hold a workshop on the draft Irish Beach Water District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Update. The Commission will review and discuss the draft study and welcomes public comment on the document. No formal action will be taken on the draft MSR SOI at this meeting, and a public hearing will be scheduled for formal consideration by the Commission. Director Hinman, will this be Analyst Filer, or will this be you presenting?
All right, I will do a brief presentation on this one. I want to also note that we have representatives from the Irish Beach Water District available today. So as a reminder, a municipal service review is a study of a local agency's governance and operations. It provides an inventory and analysis of the agency's services, including governance and accountability, fiscal health and responsibilities, operations of the district, the anticipated growth of the jurisdictional area, and the capacity of the services provided. This is the second MSR for the district, the first being adopted in 2014. The district was originally formed in February of 1967. The services provided are water supply, treatment, and distribution. They also provide administrative overview of private septic systems within their boundaries. The district itself is just under 1,300 acres in size, and they provide service to approximately 204 of the 450 developed lots. The customers can range about 254 depending on the season. There is one outside service area that is provided water only. It includes 2 parcels located west of Highway 1, not 101, and is called the Insight. You can see on the map the area is located on the northern corner of the district sphere up here. There are a number of regional providers in the area. The Elk County Water District to the north provides water service. The Point Arena Waterworks provides water to the city of Point Arena and is a privately owned water company. The city of Point Arena provides wastewater, and then fire services are provided by the Redwood Coast Fire Protection District. There are also a couple of community or privately owned water companies, the Point Arena Lighthouse and the Lighthouse Point. The district is managed by a water system manager who is the acting general manager. They have 3 part-time water system operators and then 1 staff assistant or clerk. And they also hired a special assistant to the board, and they contract for staffing and services for district counsel, a financial auditor, IT support, and a board treasurer. Their water supply is primarily from Irish Gulch diversions. They do have a number of wells that they use for emergency needs when the flows in Irish Gulch get too low. They provide about 8.4 million gallons per year of domestic water. That's about 23,000 gallons per day. They have 5 water storage facilities and a water treatment plant, and they have about 7.5 miles of pipeline. They also service a water hydrant system, and their water system is at approximately 31% capacity. They also manage a wastewater disposal zone for their district, and they have 204 private septic systems. They are responsible solely for the monitoring and the record keeping of maintenances on those. And then they estimate about 55,000 gallons per day. A sphere of influence is the plan for the probable future boundary and service area of the agency, and it is adopted by the Commission. The sphere was last updated in 2016. It is coterminous except for 2 parcels that are referred to as the Insight and are the outside agency services. No proposed changes to the sphere is recommended, and the district concurs with that. So for today, this is just a workshop for the Commission to review, discuss, and request revisions to the study, and we welcome public comment at this time. No formal action will be taken on the draft study. Today, a public hearing will be scheduled for formal consideration in the future. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Horsley.
I have several questions. On page 65 and 66, they kind of going together. I'm curious, do you want to do the same thing where we just give our questions and we're answered? Okay, I'm curious as to why they decided to take over the sanitation to to acquire, design, own, construct, install, operate, monitor, inspect. And I know later on it says that they really only monitor and inspect and provide information, but why the district decided to do that. And I didn't see the fees, but I saw also that they do charge for that service. So I'm assuming they do that for every sanitation system there. It wasn't real clear. On page 73, the district secured state funding to complete 3 major infrastructure projects. All the way through this, there's a lot of different projects mentioned. I just wondered what those 3 were. And then on page 78, it was good to see, I went on their website, they did get the property tax bill assessment approved, so that they will get that additional $32,000 per year, if I read that correctly, which looks like it'll help cover a lot of their deficit, annual deficit, and give them money for future projects. And on page 90, the district is currently in the process of identifying water supply sources for future growth. I guess if somebody could address, it looked like they were talking about future growth, but at the same time, there's a reduction in people living there. I just kind of wondered what they thought the next 10 years would bring in growth. It didn't look like it was going to, because the system currently is operating at approximately 31% capacity, but they're talking about adding on additional capacity, and so they must think that it is going to increase somehow. And then they're talking about the wells that they included or added. And then on page 99, that's just the wastewater responsibilities. Again, that kind of hooks into the page 65, 66 questions.
Commissioner Ward?
Back in 16, I think the last MSR, there's some discussion. Oh, sorry, close. Back in 2016, when we did the MSR, wasn't there some discussion about lawsuit?
It's in there.
Yeah. So where are we with that?
My understanding is the lawsuit they've reached a settlement agreement, and then and maybe the district can speak more to this, but there is an agreement for back payment to the property owner. So the settlement there's no current lawsuit. The agreement has
So
been.
they settled it?
Yeah.
Okay.
There has been a settlement.
Because we were supposed to follow up with that a few years later, but I don't know if we ever did. I'm glad we're back at it after 8 years, but it did settle. That's good. What is the Insight again?
The Insight is owned, I believe, by Mr. Moores, and we had actually discussed that at a. They had an application on file. He had an application on file for quite some time for that, and that was formally withdrawn finally.
It was, okay.
But there is limited development potential due to the location. The location right on the bluffs there.
Thank you.
Commissioner McGorty, Ward, and Roden?
So I'm really curious about a few things, and as I read through the physical plant, and it talks about a 3-inch water line that was put into place, and I'm wondering, are these utilities buried, or are they on the surface, or what's the physical setup?
I will have to defer to the district for that response.
The other thing I don't see any mention of is what kind of a water diversion agreement they have. The 1603 stream bank improvement is pretty typical from Cal Fish and Wildlife. And I imagine that's probably a salt-mounted stream, and I just wonder, looking through or thinking about the future and how difficult it is to continue with those sort of agreements that isn't brought up here. And I just wondered if that's been contemplated, and if they're being, like a lot of other coastal streams, if they're having to look at a winter forbearance plan where basically they divert water in the winter, and as water becomes more limited in the summer months, if they're okay for flow, or you know, what they're thinking about that, because that's a big issue with why the town of Mendocino is not able to develop water from Big River and some of the adjacent rivers that empty into the Pacific near them. So I'm just curious how they continue to be able to divert surface water, and you know, how secure is that as a source of water?
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the lawsuit, but Commissioner Ward beat me to that. And I guess as far as the growth that we talked about a little bit ago, I guess I'm curious about absentee residents. Are there folks that, are they anticipating more people occupying? Is that the reason? I guess that's why I was wondering about the growth, because I think when we saw one of these other ones farther south there, I think we saw that there were a lot of people that came and went, and it was more of a vacation thing. And also a comment on their website. I really loved their website. It was very, very precise, and even gave you bios on the folks that work there.
Thank you. Commissioner Roden?
Page 73. I'm not even there, but it, section 2.2.3, it talks about shared operating resources with Elk Community Services District. Anyway, what does that mean? Shared operating resources, and it said that in the findings or the determinations too, and I mean, it says in parts of it that, you know, no other districts nearby for sharing, and so anyway, that was confusing to me. And then the other part that was confusing was wastewater services, because it says in several places that you know, that the district just provides monitoring and maintenance of private, community, septic, and so on. But then on, it's a page, it's the facilities section. I think it's page 90. It talks about effluent and all this stuff, and which I associate with a, let's see, where is it? Okay, so on page 93 at the bottom. Wait, no. What does it talk about? It talks about the wastewater system. Wait, water treatment plant. Okay, that's water treatment, but, okay, so there's wastewater on page 99, maybe? Sorry. 99.
That's the surface water treatment. They're talking about flocculation and filtration.
Let's see. Maybe I did get mixed up between the water treatment and the wastewater, but I'm sorry if I did, but I thought that, yeah, maybe that's what I did. Maybe at that point on the facilities, my mind was thinking of wastewater, and it sounded like there was a whole plant, but there's not. That's the water treatment, and the wastewater is just the maintenance and oversight. Okay, then it's all good.
Commissioner McCordy?
Just a real quick comment on it. So what they're taking the surface water, which of course is, from a public health point of view, has things like Giardia and Cryptosporidium in it, and then it's got to be treated, and it also has suspended sediment. So they have this whole process where first step is flocculation, where they glom onto everything and try to get the water as pure as possible. Then it goes through filtration and finally chlorination, and that's what they're talking about.
Right, and I guess I associated flocculation, all that stuff with wastewater, and
Right.
so then mine went to, oh, what were they doing with wastewater? Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. If we could hear from the folks from the Irish Beach Water District, if they have answers to some of the commissioners' questions or any updates they wanted to provide.
Morning. This is Heather Hackett, and I am the Secretary of the Board of Directors for Irish Beach Water District. And I will just say, this is my first time going through a LAFCO workshop for a municipal service review. So please bear with me as I stumble through this a little bit. One of the questions asked was about the specific grant projects that were mentioned on page 73, for which the district received state funding. Those infrastructure projects were three specific things that were targeted to help the districts survive future drought conditions. Luckily, the last couple of years have not been too bad, but we are planning for the future. So the first of those projects was to renovate a water storage tank that had been taken offline because its cover had deteriorated. And so we received grant funding to allow us to replace the cover on that tank and put it back into service. About a 60,000 gallon tank. The second project was to activate a well that had been drilled approximately 9 years ago, but never activated for lack of funding. State funding allowed us to activate that well. It's now online. And the third project was to replace an 11,000 gallon storage tank that likewise had deteriorated, had been taken offline, and we were able to replace that so that we had a storage facility for a second one of our wells. I think there were a number of questions around future growth and the water supply, developing water supply for future growth. The district currently serves 204 developed properties. It's the district itself is made up of 450 properties. The pace of development has been much slower than originally projected when the development was first established. On average, we add 1 or 2 households a year, so it's a slow pace of growth. And we can currently support additional houses with the amount of water that we have, but there is a point where we will need to have new sources in order to support full build out. And, likewise, most of our water for most of the year comes from Irish Gulch, a surface water flow that we pull out of the stream and treat and deliver to our customers. But as was noted, that does have seasonal impact during storm periods of high turbidity in the water. We need to have other sources of water. That's where well water comes in. And at this time of the year, September, October, where the flows in the gulch are lower, we oftentimes need to use well water in order to deliver sufficient water to our customers. In terms of anticipated changes to a diversion agreement, being able to take that surface water, that is one of the reasons why we need to have sufficient funding in order to develop new water sources. So looking at wells in other parts of the development, other different aquifers, so that we can have sufficient water in case of regulatory changes that allow for diversion of stream water. There were questions about the lawsuit, and I did want to clarify one thing. The lawsuit, there was a partial settlement. There was a that addressed a portion of the lawsuit. There was a final judgment in February of 2024. Final costs and attorney fees decided in January, or excuse me, July of this year. So we are putting that longstanding lawsuit behind us. There was a question about shared operational resources with the Elk County Water District. Up until very recently, Elk County Water District and Irish Beach Water District are two very small special water districts. Up until September 30th, the two districts shared a water system manager, general manager. At the end of September, that individual, Charlie Aker, retired from the Irish Beach Water District, continues in Elk. But because there was that shared resource, a lot of operational knowledge, staffing resources, in case of large projects or emergencies, sharing of equipment, sharing of vendor and consultant services, a very common exchange of knowledge and resources occurred between the two districts. I think I've touched on everything that was asked, but please remind me if I have not addressed your questions.
Okay, I think that we do have a couple questions, so I'm going to go to Commissioner Horsley and Commissioner McGorty. But before we do that, is there a plan to address the change in no longer having that employee?
Yes, we are. Yes, is the answer. We are in the process of recruiting. We have hired a new water system manager who assumed the position on October the 16th, and we are in the process of recruiting for general manager. We have not hired anyone yet. Okay. That is why I am representing the district today.
Thank you for that, and thank you for trying to get all those questions answered. I do think probably Director Hinman will want to note that in the update because it does reference the previous employee. Commissioner Horsley.
If there was one question I had, I don't believe you answered, and that was regarding as to why did the district take over the sewer systems?
So Irish Beach does not actually have a sewer system. Irish Beach has private septic systems, and that has been from the inception of the development in the late 60s. Every household has its own septic system. The district's role with wastewater is in from an administrative standpoint, so that we are monitoring that there are regular septic inspections and keeping record of that, making sure that our septic systems are functioning properly so that we don't have contamination of our water source.
And do you charge for that service?
That service is part of our overall service charges. So we charge for water usage as well as for water service, and that's just rolled up as part of it. It's not a unique charge.
Thank you.
Commissioner McGorty.
Yeah, just a question again about the 4,000-foot long raw water pipe. And is it above ground or below ground?
That water pipe is above ground.
Okay. That makes it easy to inspect.
Right. Well, yes. It's in a yes, it is easy to inspect.
Commissioner Roden?
Following up on Commissioner Horsley's question about the septic systems, was that, the role that the district is playing now, was that something then that the county environmental health would have had responsibility before the district took over that? And was, yeah, I'm just curious what maybe the county environmental health wasn't doing the job adequately for Iris Beach residents, so that the district took that on. I guess I'm not clear why.
So I will simply answer, to my knowledge, county environmental health never provided that service for the community of Irish Beach. That since the development's inception and the formation of the district in the late 60s, that role has been performed by the Irish Beach Water District.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any additional commissioner questions at this time. And since this was our initial workshop, Director Hinman, will this be scheduled for the December meeting?
We will work with the district to address some of these questions and make them more clear in the document. And then, yes, we can schedule, I believe we can schedule it for a December meeting, provided we can coordinate that timing with the district through the holidays.
Okay, sounds good. There are no members of the public in Ukiah, and there are no members of the public online to ask questions. So with that, we can move on to item number 8. There are no items for item number 7, so item number 8 is starting with item 8A, the work plan, current and future proposals.
Thank you. So the work plan does continue to progress. We have the Irish Beach Water District that we'll be working on and scheduling for public hearing. We also have 2 remaining coastal districts that we're working on, the Elk County Water District and the Westport County Water District. Both of those we are waiting for information from both those districts so we can proceed to the next step. The work, let's see, for the inland districts, we have been working on the Russian River Flood Control District and the Potter Valley Irrigation District, and we'll be meeting with the Laytonville County Water District in the next month. I did hold an initial information interview with the Round Valley County Water District last month, and so we're progressing on that, and it seems that we may be able to use the streamlined process that the commission blessed earlier this year. So we'll be bringing that forward in the next month or 2. And that's all I have for an update, unless there are questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions regarding the work plan? Okay, I'm not seeing any. We can move on. Was any correspondence received?
None.
And the CALAFCO Business and Legislative Report, item 8C.
I have no updates on CALAFCO. I was thinking that the commissioners might be invited to discuss the conference under the item 8F.
Okay. Item 8D, any additional reports from the executive officer?
I wanted to report that I will be holding a LAFCO 101 with the new commissioners that are coming on. I've been coordinating with Tamara Alanis at the Brook Trails Township CSD. So we'll be holding it there on December 12th, and that will be just for the new incoming commissioners. The Mendocino Coast Healthcare District, we had told the grand jury that we would be working on a municipal service review for that district, and we would initiate it by the end of the year. I have been coordinating with Kathy Wiley at the district, but As I'm sure you've seen in the newspaper, they are under a new renegotiation with Adventist Health at this time. So we are kind of holding off for a couple of weeks to see how that goes. It's a 60-day negotiation period, which should end, I think, towards the end of November, is the information that I have right now. And I'll be connecting with Kathy again at that point and kind of determine next steps for the MSR.
I think Commissioner Ward has a question.
Regarding that, are they profitable yet?
It's confusing because the district themselves feel that they are in the black, but the Adventist Health component of that, who run the operations of the hospital, I think have been struggling. So I'm not sure how that affects the apportionment fees. I have asked the question to the auditor's office, and the numbers they go off of are provided by the state controller, which show that they are still in the red.
We'll take half. Have a
I
compromise.
think Commissioner Ward is referring to the fact that they owe us some fees. Can we go back to the LAFCO 101? I appreciate that you're offering that to the new commissioners, and I wondered, there may potentially be new city council members in Ukiah. There are 2 Mendocino County Board of Supervisors that have been elected that will start in January. City of Willits or other cities, maybe City of Fort Bragg, may also have new council members. Would it be possible to extend an opportunity for those individuals to also get to know and understand LAFCO?
We could do that. We could also schedule a workshop time at the end of one of our meetings in early 2025. And we've done that in the past where we kind of go through our whole agenda. And then the last item is a workshop, a LAFCO 101 workshop. That way that commissioners who don't want to attend it can leave. So that might be an option.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, just a thought, as I know that there may be some changes, and it might be just helpful for those people, even if they don't end up with LAFCO assignments, to understand the processes.
Sure.
Great.
To do that.
Sorry for interrupting your report. I think you were not finished yet.
One other item. We have heard from the Mendocino Coast Park and Rec District, who have requested a municipal service review. Their last MSR was done in 2008. Because they're not a municipal service provider, we have not prioritized them to date. So they have requested that. They also went to their board asking for funding to be authorized to have us prepare that MSR, and their board has authorized them to provide funding to support an MSR. So we'll be working on that and what that means, and probably will schedule an executive committee meeting to discuss the overall work plan and tasks for staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Roden.
I was just curious, why would they want one? Did they talk about that?
They said there's been a lot of changes since the 2008 MSR. They have a whole southern area of their district that has since been added, and would like to have that snapshot in time of the health of their district. And they've had a number of grand jury reports over the years as well, so I think it is a good idea.
Cool. Commissioner Ward?
What would it cost an MSR? Do they have realized it's not cheap?
Yeah, so they authorized between $21,000 and $25,000 for an MSR.
And do you have staff to do that?
I think that's one of the things that we need to look at, and whether we would have to contract that out. The estimates for the Mendocino Coast Healthcare District came in at about $23,000 to $25,000.
Okay. Aren't they in an application for annexation too, between the city of Fort Bragg, the Park District?
Not that I'm aware of.
I thought they were trying to annex into the city, the parks, 500, 600 acres.
Oh, that's city-owned property that the city of Fort Bragg will be trying to annex in for surface water storage, and there's a recreation component to that.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all I have for my staff report.
Thank you. Are there any committee reports?
Just on LAFCO, is this appropriate time?
Well, we'll get, for commissioner reports, Commissioner Horsley?
I just want to two things. One, when I went, I expected to just go to classes like you normally do, but I was quite pleased to see what a close-knit, great group of people they were. They knew each other, they worked together, they were helpful, they were, you know, anything you needed, and I felt like it was kind of a network you could call anytime you needed help, and they'd be there to help you, which it was a wonderful, because usually with League of Cities and all of that, they're so huge, you just don't feel that or see it, and it was a very close-knit group. It was very nice, and I really appreciate the opportunity to go. I would say the other thing that hit me was how important when you have something like an annexation or something like that, it is to communicate with the public, meet with them, find out what their questions are, answer those ahead of time, because it made the difference when they were giving stories. It made the difference of being able to do something and not do something based on how much communication with the public there'd been and interaction with the public. I mean, it was pretty amazing. So I think for all of us in our agencies, that's something we need to work, some of us need to work on a little more.
Commissioner Roden?
Yeah, Commissioner Horsley and I both heard that separately come up a lot about how important it is to reach out to the community. And then the other thing I wanted to say is there was a new session this time, which involved case studies, real case studies from different counties. I think there were 3 presented. And did you know about this one? It was so good because they were really interesting issues that came up. I won't go into any right now. And then each table had 5 minutes to talk about, well, what would you do in this situation? And you know, and then the people at my table were, you know, there was a retired planner who was a commissioner, there was an executive officer, and it was so interesting. And so I hope they do that every time. It was really like being back in school in a class you really love. So I wanted to plug that session.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward?
Who's our Northern District representative now?
I think that there was an election. I'm not sure who won. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Only candidate, give his name down.
Josh Sussman.
Yeah.
Was it
And
Sussman?
then there was one from the floor for the other position that came forward. Honestly, I can't remember, from MODOC, I believe.
Okay.
That it was a last minute application, but we basically voted yes.
I'll have to get that name. They haven't released the report yet from that.
Okay, just curious.
Oh.
Like a figure, you know, he's a fixture, so it was kind of, he knew he wanted it, and so didn't have any competition. So, and I just want to say that I really enjoyed the one. I think I mentioned to Uma that really wish I could have gone to the consolidation breakout session, but I ended up going to the water one, but I really really enjoyed that one. Water's going to be king, or is king.
Thank you. With that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.